Hi everybody, and welcome to Matrix Live, Season 3, Episode 14, I believe. Once I didn't have to look it up.
Very good.
So we're here with Neil, who would like to talk to us about roadmaps. This is very grown up and organised now.
Yeah, I know. But really what it comes down to, so we've had a big year so far, right? We've managed to ship the first stable release of the server-to-server API. We're about to land Synapse 1.0 in just a couple of weeks. We yesterday put out Riot 1.0. It's some big foundational pieces happening with us right now. And so what we wanted to do is, have a little think about, well, what next? Great, we've done this. It's really just the first step, though. We want to, go take over the world and all that kind of good stuff. And it's all very well us talking internally amongst the core team about, plans for the future. We wanted to find a way to share that more broadly. We want people to know roughly what we're doing. Also, we can get some feedback that way as well. And quite often we get a lot of questions around, there's this really important feature. Why aren't you working on it? Like, it's obviously really important. What are you doing? And the answer normally is, we agree it's a really important thing. We want to work on it, but before we work on that, we have to work on this other one, because we think they're even more important. So this is really just trying to find a really compact kind of way to give people an idea of what we're working on.
Also, we've never had one before. Like, it's something that people have asked about since day one. Like, where is the roadmap? When are we going to get peer-to-peer matrix? When is end-to-end encryption going to start? When is it going to come out of beta? All this stuff. And in fact, when you first got involved in the project, a year ago, I said, hey, Neil, something will be amazing is if we can publish a roadmap so we can point people at this and it will help visibility. And poor Neil went and built this amazing, beautiful roadmap document, which then immediately got completely overtaken by governance stuff, in that I was going on about the spec process, setting up the matrix.org foundation, and it just felt a bit weird to, on one hand, be saying, hey guys, here is a bunch of back-end roadmap stuff, which also at the time was going all over the place because of reactive stuff we had to do last year. And then on the other hand, here's also another bunch of governance stuff, and people will think, well, you've all gone bureaucratic mad. Whereas now, I think it's the perfect time to actually unleash the roadmap upon the world. So, and here it is.
Here it is, yeah. So basically what we did, so there's about 6 of us working back-end at the moment, 5 nationalities, 3 locations. So we've got everyone in the same place, and we started to post-its on a wall. We did that.
Loads of post-its, actually.
Loads of post-its, right.
So we're going to look at the other post-its. We even almost set this up correctly with a tripod mechanism that is in no way an office chair with a lazy Susan on it. So there are all the post-its in excruciating detail, I think. Yeah, you can probably see more. We won't go for more. I think there's a photo on the blog post which is going out with this, where the more detail-obsessed of you can go and take a look. But this is like the summary form, right?
That's right. So we started off with all these post-its on the wall. We had a big punch-up over which is most important and how to make our trade-offs. We managed to group them all together a little bit, and we ended up coming up with some quite high-level sort of groupings, and then tried to put those together, and that is what this is. Now, I don't know if you can see this really well or not, but I'm going to point at it and pretend that you can.
I reckon I can. Let's just double-check the resolution. Yeah, that's almost visible. Very almost.
All right. So we've tried to keep this super, super lightweight, and we've basically got columns. Now, next, later, later still. And that's as sort of granular as we're going to get. And the key thing is just trying to limit the total number of things we have in each of these, just so it's actually kind of meaningful that, of all the next projects we're going to start on, they're here and they're ready to go. So what are we doing right now? I'm trying to, there we are, in the shot. So Synapse 1.0, that's kind of our thing until sort of early March, where we'll ship that. Cross-signing for cross-signing devices for end-to-end encryption.
To be fair, that's more reviewing the Hubert stuff.
Yeah, it's not really. It's not something we're spending a lot of time on, but it's Hubert leading on that. And then the final thing is small hosted home servers. And so this is kind of two drivers. Firstly, most people who are adminning their servers are not running a matrix.org size installation. Maybe it's 10 people, a few of the friends and family, that kind of thing. And we haven't spent as much time as we'd like to have done on optimizing that use case. So thinking about RAM usage, thinking about disk usage, all that kind of stuff. We also want exactly the same thing for modular. It's our most requested feature for modular. Right now, if you want to sign up for our hosted services, that's really targeted at someone who wants to have 50 users on their server. So what would happen if somebody could have like a friends and family version? And so we're going to spend a bit of time on that. Hawkeye's going to lead on that project, and we're really, really looking forward to it because we haven't spent a lot of time just optimizing on that case.
Oh look, Tom's going home.
There's Tom. All right, so what's next? What are we going to do next? So we've got this one here, timeline chunking. We were trying to think just before we had switched on how we explain this one really, really well. But it's basically giving us primitives to talk about whole blocks of DAG in, we're talking about the room DAG. So what this allows us to do is to be a lot more efficient about how we process extremities. It helps us a lot when we're trying to determine the order of events as they come through, and just generally makes the room experience a bit more robust.
I mean, you can think of it a bit like a meta DAG of sorts. That if you have a room that is currently fragmenting lots because servers keep on coming and going from it, and I'm sure we've all experienced the thing that a server goes offline, sends a few messages, comes back again, etc. You can model each of these sections of disconnected DAG as a chunk, and then only do state resolution within that, and so you end up resolving across the chunks rather than the events, or the extremities, I should say. So even if you have lots and lots of extremities across all the fragments of the DAG at a given point, this is effectively collapsing it down, so you only need to do state resolution over a small subset of them. Therefore, we would no longer need to clear out extremities, in theory, all the time in order to keep servers performant. At least that's the theory. That's where Eric will come in here and yell at us for getting it all wrong, but that's sort of the theory.
But ultimately, it should mean snappier home service.
Yeah, massively.
Next up, communities. So we already have communities. You can use them today, right as support, and that's great. We kind of think we could do a bit more with them. We also want to tie them in a little bit more when you first show up as a new user to Matrix. So we're going to have a rethink of that, and then naturally on the back end, we need to make sure that we're supporting that and we have the right APIs to support that experience. I suspect we'll talk more publicly about sort of from a design and product point of view what we're thinking about there.
Yeah, honestly, we haven't finished the UX that would be driving this in Riot, and we think it's pretty important that we actually build the API and the protocol functionality driven by a real-world use of how these things would be used in an app. And in some ways, what went wrong on the current thing is that the spec and APIs were done very much independently of how we wanted to use it in the app, frankly, or in a app for that matter. So what shape that takes is still very much open, and there are lots of different factions in the company and in the overall Matrix ecosystem for how these things should look, but hopefully we're basically going to end up with lots of people coming into this big glass echo chamber and leaving with lots of blood on the wall, and 2 people enter, 1 person ends up. It'll be fun. That's how we make decisions.
Yeah.
And a big hammer. And what's the hammer? Has anybody seen our hammer? This is that's the old Riot hammer, and this is the new Riot hammer. So you take people's hands, you put them on the table.
So moving on, aggregations. This is so events can refer to other events. That doesn't sound sexy on itself, but it allows you to do things like editing messages. It allows you to do things like replies natively. We kind of do them today in Riot, but really actually part of the protocol. It allows you to do emoji reactions as well. So we see this as something that's kind of permission to play with a lot of other instant messengers, and we just want to do that as well, and we've got a good idea of how we'll go about it.
It's frankly a bit embarrassing that we don't have it already, especially as Pick did a really good PR to Synapse a long time ago, 2016, that went and did it. In fact, it's so good, it's in some ways a bit over-engineered, and that allows you to specify arbitrary schema of arbitrary events that you're aggregating. So you can say, hey, I want to do emoji reactions, therefore I'm going to upload my JSON schema thing that defines what emoji reactions look like. And what he didn't get around to doing is the federation API side of it, sadly, which in some ways is one of the harder ones in terms of how you efficiently sync these in the right place. But from a client-server API, it's pretty good. So I wrote an MSc to propose how this looks, and if you look at Neil's amazing GitHub board, where these blue things come to life as real GitHub issues, you can, I think, see a link to the MSc, which proposes how it could be done, which is heavily based on Pick stuff. Unfortunately, Pick passed away before he could finish the PR or before we could review it. And we're really hoping that we can finish off the work that he started on this at last, albeit a few years too late, or later, hopefully not too late.
Dendrite, R0 support. So with the Dendrite project, we're trying to keep pushing this forward, we're trying to make progress against it. We've got a stable version of our server-to-server R0 spec, and we think that, hey, if you're going to run a Dendrite, you want it to federate. That's a big step. So Brendan and Andrew are going to take that on and make that happen, which is going to be huge. All right. Later. Server-client sync. Right? There's some cases where the server and the client can get out of sync around state and what they think's kind of going on, and that normally happens when some sort of state resolution has occurred that doesn't necessarily generate a new sort of change in state. So the server thinks something's changed and the client hasn't, because it's listening on its timeline, and we insert say events down the timeline sync. So we need to look at that, and we need to figure out a way to push the client to make sure everything's in sync. And so from a user point of view, this kind of means occasionally you see weird stuff happening. We think that our new state resolution algorithm will make it less likely to see problems with this, but we don't know until we ship and start using that regularly. So that's why it's there, and that's why it's in later.
Actually, quite a good example of this might be the phenomenon where everybody ends up with a slightly different number of users in the room. You ever seen the game in Matrix HQ, especially back in the day where people would say, hey, how many people do you have in Matrix HQ right now? On my cards, I can see 13,458. Oh, my one is 14,000, blah, 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 blah. Some of that is federation atomicity first, but I think the vast majority is as state resets and resolution weirdness was happening on the server, the API just doesn't have a semantic to convey it to the client until this blue post-it conflict breaks.
Tools for server admins. So we've tried over the years to make setting up a Synapse to be easy. We tried to do this. It's the reason we support SQLite, so you can just get going out of the box. And it takes quite a lot of extra care to support multiple database engines. But despite that, we still think we could make it quite a lot easier. We got a lot of feedback on how we could be making this easier, and we really just want to spend some time on this. So this is partly administrative tools. So if you're trying to admin a server, you can sort of log into a web app and go and look at a whole bunch of things. Maybe you can look at your users on your server if that's what you want. Your resource usage, all that kind of good stuff. So we want to spend a bit of time there. We also want to spend a bit of time on the setup tools as well. We've seen a couple of other similar-ish kind of projects that have actually done a really good job on that, and we think that that we'd like to do the same kind of stuff.
I mean, does that extend to a web interface for managing Synapse, please?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay, cool.
So
I mean, it wasn't clear if it was like shell scripts to purge people more easily, or if it's going to be a beautiful React web app where we can go and view all of the rooms, all of the users, how much disk space they use, and allow people to shoot them in the head.
Absolutely, all that stuff. DINSIC mainline. Right, what's this? What's DINSIC? What is that? So we have a branch of Synapse called DINSIC. DINSIC are the French Civil Service Digital Agency, and currently it's a fork of Synapse. This is a problem for two reasons. One is there's some really cool stuff on that branch that we've done especially for them, and we want to put that into Synapse mainline. But also the other way, changes that we put in Synapse mainline and take a little while to propagate there. So this is more a kind of tech debt re-architecture project, because what we think we could do is adopt a more kind of modular plugin approach, and then what that means is we have a way to manage things like auth or join rules into rooms, and then where we have specific configurations that a given setup needs, then they can write specific behavior for them. So this also means that we can scale this out, and it also means that everyone gets the benefits of the stuff that we've done for DINSIG. So that's why that's there. That's why we think it's important. We think everyone kind of benefits from that. Delta state resolution. I'm going to start trying to explain this. Matthew, you might want to jump in. But basically, it's memorization of our state resolution algorithm. So we're not changing the algorithm, but we're doing less work in order to calculate state resolution instances. We don't know how much bang for buck we're actually going to get from doing this. Eric spent a whole bunch of time last summer doing this on our old algorithm. So to do this, he'd have to pick it up and apply it to the new one.
It's of work on the new one though too, as in we deliberately designed a new one to make sure it would still delta state res correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, the tricky thing on this, I mean, you basically said what it is. That you have a whole bunch of state events from one server and from another server, and you want to resolve them together. And at the moment, we have to go through every single one, starting at the room creation event, to try to reconcile the two. And on a big room with lots of members, that takes forever. That's where all the RAM or the CPU goes in your synapse. A lot of it, perhaps, although interestingly, at the moment, we're seeing it not being a bottleneck on matrix.org, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Either way, it's unquestionable that it would help things a bit if it could be done in a more incremental manner, such that if you have already resolved these two rooms together at some point, then even if a random event does get added on one side or the other, you can quickly calculate the update. The problem comes if an old event suddenly appears from ages ago, and you have to work out how to apply this ancient update or this topologically old update to the two copies of the room that you're resolving together. And that basically means backtracking through that process until you do find a common ground where you can then apply the difference and then go forwards again. So in the worst case, it still collapses down to the state res of today, but in the better case, in the common case, it should be way faster. How much? Who knows? You need to finish implementing it. Later still. In the future.
So this is stuff we really want to work on. We know we think everyone would like us to be working on. We're not working on it immediately, but it's not because we've forgotten about it. So we have peer-to-peer matrix. Imagine if you could just have a phone and you wouldn't even need to think about Synapse.
It makes Synapse a lot easier to run and a lot easier to set up.
Yeah.
If it wasn't there.
So we've got that on our horizon. We're thinking about kind of how we might go about doing it. It's not something that we're going to be working on like super seriously anytime soon, but we're thinking hard about how we might achieve it.
I want to do it for fun, frankly.
Right.
If all of my spare time. It would be so cool.
Let's move you around there.
I was trying to hide.
There we go.
Trying to be eliminated down to a Blue Peter or CBBC broom covered glove off screen.
Okay. There we go. Reputation.
Reputation is my hobby horse, and we still think that Matrix is in danger of imploding as a network if we don't have mechanisms to empower users to block the people they don't want to see and block the content they don't want to see. So this is not about any kind of centralized or morally absolute system to try to block content or censor stuff. Absolutely not. Instead, people can put whatever the hell they want into Matrix. There's no way we can stop that. But what we can do is to say, Neil, do you want to filter out all of the cat photos?
Yeah.
And Neil can go into his Matrix client or use some kind of interface to say, look, dial down the cat photos, where cat photos are ones which have been tagged as cats by the wider community. Or it might be, Neil, do you like Cory.io?
Yeah.
Okay, in which case you might go and look at Cory.io's reputation data that he publishes and his exquisite blend of boingboing.net and all of his antics, and say, hey, I only want to see the things which Cory wrote. But you might also say, I love Trump and I want to see everything that Trump says is good too. So you can blend up 50% Trump, 50% Cory.io and end up with a very, very interesting view of the world. I mean, honestly, we're looking at this in a multi-year horizon and almost just really investing in the long term of the project to make sure it does the right thing. But if we don't, it's just going to turn into SMTP or even worse, NNTP, old binaries. Expensible profile. Expensible profiles.
Extensible profiles as rooms. So that this is just being able to share more metadata about yourself. It's a good feature. We'd like to do it. It's only over here because I got really grumpy about having too many things in each of these columns.
I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up happening sooner, because if nothing else, somebody who really wants it and is willing to chuck us some money to do it, and we've done a fairly crappy implementation of it, I hope you're not watching, for right now, where you can set a custom profile in Riot, whereas this is the proper deal, and it'll be really nice to get it in properly. We might sort of get it for free, depending on how we end up solving communities or some of the other things here.
And then the final one is Python 3 support for Sident and Signal.
I still think that Python 3 is the very least problem that Sident and Signal have. But
well, it's more just we want to have upgraded before Python 2's end of life. So it's on our mind. It's not something that we want to prioritise over any of this other stuff.
You can so see a big nightmare in terms of how can it be? And it turns out that people have got email addresses with non-ASCII characters or some horrible thing in it which breaks Sident. Anyway, well, that's it. Easy, right?
That's it. So that's what we're doing. Oh, but
timeframes.
No.
What?
No. Is this written in blood?
All set in stone.
All set in stone. Well, it's not.
It's post-its.
It's post-its. So what we're doing, we're looking at post-its right now. I'm going to put this on a GitHub project so everyone can go and have a look at it. You should view it as a snapshot of based on what we know right now. This is the order of things that we're going to work on.
Best intentions.
Best intentions. We're going to change it. This guy's going to come up with some crazy scheme, and we're going to need to move everything around. But at any given moment, you go and look at that board. That is the trade-offs that we're making, and we'll keep it up to date. If you don't think we're keeping it up to date, come yell at me, and I'll make sure that it's up to date. Or I'll say, no, really, this is legit what we're trying to do. That's how you should choose this board. The reason we haven't put dates or anything on here is we know that a whole bunch of stuff is going to sort of come up, sort of emerge over the next few months. So this could be, hey, loads more people are on matrix.org and we need to spend some time real quick to keep things snappy. Hypothetically. Or there's some other project we need to work on, and a bunch of the backend developers need to go off and do that. So we're really just trying to show a sense of, based on what we know now, this is the order of events. That's it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Easy. I guess when we were doing this, we were kind of mentally thinking about the 3-month horizon, at least up until there. But yeah, as you say, it's really, God knows how these things will land, and it's going to be so reactive it's untrue. But I'm so happy that we've got aggregations and communities coming up next. And let's come back in 3 months and see how many of these are still stuck up on the wall.
There'll be you and me sort of clothes torn.
Yeah, precisely. It'll be like the TNG episode where you get Riker turning up. Never mind. Another world. I don't want to fast forward 3 months, honestly, and see what's happened here. You will note that threading is not on here, which is just as well, because we promised threading in, I think, November 2015, and we haven't made so much progress with it yet. We have replies, and aggregations will help a bit, but we're actually trying to be realistic, and so thank you, Neil, for trying to inject, and hopefully succeeding in injecting some realism. Not that I'm hopelessly delusional and enthusiastic in the manner that obviously you hope for somebody in my position.
So, tell us what you think. Come in our developer channels in #Dendrite. Tell us what's going on. Harass me directly if you've got any specific questions that you don't want to share more broadly. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sticking out to the end.
Indeed. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
I even remember to hit record.